to give up. Hiya. Hiya. I'm going to say it again. I feel like I haven't gone live for ages because I haven't. Well, not publicly anyway. Oh, well, I did last week or something, right? Just not recently. And it looks like the things are working now. Now, bear with me. We're going to have a bit of a chat tonight. Well, it might be morning wherever you are around the world, right? Okay, now I'm just going to like adjust this thing because, you know, it wasn't right before. Well, it kind of was. Oh my gosh, okay. Getting it together. I think that's better. That's better. That's better. Now, let me concentrate on this for a minute. Because I'm doing it on my computer. On my Buddha. Not on my phone to share it, so I better concentrate this time. Okay. Discard. I think we got it here. I think I'm figuring it out. Share. Let me know when you're here. Say hi. Tell me where you are from around the globe. Tell me if it's morning, noon, or night, wherever you are. Okay, no, we don't want to share it on the page, do we? Oh, am I sharing it in the right place? See, this is where I just got to concentrate. Bear with me. Bear with me. See, did that do all like weird stuff? I don't usually share it with my computer, so just bear with me. I've usually got my other phone, but hey, that got handed over today. Oh, big moves, baby, big moves. Got to be big moves. If you want your life to move, got to make big moves. It's a fact. It's a fact. It's a fact. All right, I'll check the comments in a minute when I finish sharing this and bring up the comments on my computer because I can't see them on my phone. Okay, share this one, yes. It's almost like I'm learning how to do it all over again. Because last time I had to do it through Zoom. There's always a way. There is always a way. Okay, perfect, I did it. Sweet. Okay, nearly there. Yay. Perfect. Okay. A good afternoon from Perth. Oh, I grew up in Perth. How awesome. Joel's in Australia. Kat's in Auckland. Nearly 10 p.m. over there. Hi, Brett. Alina. First, I was supposed to move to Florida and I bought a house. Yes, and now you're not. Interesting. The house purchase fell through and I couldn't buy it because their HOA didn't pass the credit check. So it wasn't on your end, I guess, then. So Shaz is in Melbourne. Wendy, yes, live. Jeremy, hi from the UK. Brett's in New South Wales. Did I say that? I know I read it. I don't know if I said it out loud. Tia, hello. Okay, awesome. Okay, so this live stream that I'm going to talk about is a little bit of a part 2, hence why I labeled it that, of like moving, not moving, not moving, 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 not moving, 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 not moving. And there's a few things I want to talk about. Like, how did I end up here? As I know there's a lot of new people on my feed. There's always new people coming to Reality Awareness. And recently, in the last month or so, I have done a few reels and they've gone slightly viral. And I say slightly because I think that viral is like over 1 million views. They've got like, you know, I don't know, 20, 30,000. I do have one of them that's got 35 million views. That's a pretty big deal, actually. I will share more about that coming up in the next week or so. Okay, let me just come back to here. So, and the thing that I want to share about today is, I guess, the judgments that we have about people and we don't fucking know them. It kind of makes me laugh, right? And I know there's a lot of people here who do know me, but there's also a lot of people who don't. And it's not that you have to know me, it's just that when I share things, it's like, do you know who you're talking to? Oh, it's kind of funny. And there's things that I might say that might trigger you, and there's things that I might say that you really resonate with. And the reality is that's the reality of life. There's going to be people that we love, there's going to be people that we hate, there's going to be people that we have no idea who they are and they trigger us and send us into a spiral, but then we can't get enough of them and they change our life, right? There's always those people, they're the ones that you should work with, they're the mentors you should book in with, trust me, trust me. Okay, let me bring these up. Okay, Melinda's in Brisbane. Michaela, hello. Alina says, and I realized my work wasn't done where I'm at. Yes. Awesome realization. So interesting, right? It's kind of exactly where I've been dropping into with this whole like moving, not moving, moving, not moving. And so the piece here is, so for those of you who don't know the live stream I'm talking about, I did it towards the end of last year. It's like the moving, not moving, moving, not moving. And how did I end up here? I'm going to start with today. The last week, the last 2 weeks even. So, and first of all, the ISIS activation that I released, the manifestation meditation that I released last night, might have seen it on my page, that is really in alignment with what I'm talking about, okay? Because if you're wondering, number one, why things won't manifest in your life, it is because you're not actually going after what you really want. Oh, let me say that again. If things are not manifesting in your life, it is because it is things that you don't really want. Who knows what I'm talking about here? Is my hand better? No, I just don't have the thing on right now because when I'm sitting at the computer, I don't like having it wrapped up. I need a second surgery with 2 screws and a plate. Oh, fun times. Anyway, that's another story. Claudia says, sometimes you are so ego-driven. Are you saying that about me? This is hilarious. Like, did you really just say that about me? Sometimes you are so ego-driven. Oh, this is hilarious. Okay. Charlie says me, awesome, awesome. Sometimes things don't manifest because it's not what you really want. It's a pretty almost hard pill to swallow because we can be like pushing and pushing and thinking that we want these things and we're doing it, and then we're like, why the fuck isn't it working, and why is this happening and why is that happening, and we're like, I'm doing everything and it's not working. Maybe you're not yelling, but maybe sometimes you get pissed off with it and you do. But if we actually, okay, and there's something that'll happen. We'll be like pushing. And then the other thing that can happen is we totally like move away. Like we shrink back, like we hide away. We like disappear, freeze almost, right? Paralyzed feeling. And we can like hide away so much that we actually we actually don't, like, it takes ages to come back out again even, right? Sorry, I'm just plugging my laptop in. I thought that this is here. I thought I did that before. So, you know, like when we either like go, or we pull right back. And it's about getting really clear on what you really want. So the ISIS manifestation meditation is that. So if you're like in a space where you're like thinking that you need to do X, Y, and Z to get to this goal, it's probably not the way. I actually guarantee you it's not the way. It is not the answer. Yeah? When you are in your head, and by the way, this is a societal based like imprint that is so important to remove if you're doing any sort of manifestation work, if you're doing any sort of law of attraction work, if you're doing anything that's outside the realm of a normal, like A, B, C, A plus B equals C, or whatever the thing is, whatever the formula is that we're taught in high school. So do school, do uni, graduate, get the best job, whatever, right? Like do this to do this to do that. That is not actually how manifestation works. That's actually how we stay stuck in 3D reality, if you may. Yeah. And so when you actually can sit back and realize that what you're doing with X, Y, and Z might be the way that you think you've done, and you might actually have regrets about things that you've signed up for, things that you've chosen, things that you did like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, yesterday even, and you're like, why did I do that? Because you would have just had these realizations that have really come into a place where I didn't actually want to do that, but I thought I had to do that to get there. And now I'm realizing I don't, it might even be that you don't, you know, like that part of you would have done that. And that is like the answer to it in a way, right? But the reality is that you probably just don't want to freaking do it. Something else that can happen when we're like in that X, Y, and Z like place is that we can be avoiding the thing that's really actually going to make it happen. Sounds ridiculous, right? It's like the biggest distraction ever. The biggest distraction to the thing that you really want. And even the formula or the strategy. When you're like, okay, I need to do this and this and this, and you're actually avoiding doing the thing that's actually going to get you there. And you don't actually want to do this. You'll get really tired. You'll avoid it more. You'll like eat more, whatever addiction is your choice, smoke more, whatever, I don't know, right? You'll do everything to avoid doing it. And it's not even going to get you there anyway. It might get you a little bit, but it's actually not going to get you to the place that you really want to be. All right, so let me check these comments because I've had stuff in the past couple of weeks and trainings in my private groups and the comments go away and then I'm like, it's hilarious. So I just need to come back. Charlie says, that's sad. Is that about that woman? Sometimes you are so ego-driven. It's so funny. Isn't it funny, right? When we want what we want and we're like bold and audacious about that and actually fucking own it and claim it, you're like, yes, I'm ego-driven. And that's like, really? No wonder society's fucked up. It's hilarious. And this is the thing. We shut down. Oh, it's so ego to want the house. It's so ego to want the relationship, the dream relationship. It's so ego-driven to want nice things. It's so ego-driven to want what you want. It's so ego-driven to want to be a multi-billionaire because it's always been in your vision, and just because that person doesn't have the vision doesn't mean that you can't have it. It's just so ego-driven. Why? Says who? Says who? Oh, that's right. The societal conditioning from school, from preschool and all the way up. Oh, that's right. Charlie says it's like you're in my head right now. So it is. Janine says that meditation is so powerful. I know, right? That's the Isis. The initiation through the Isis pathway. And do you know what's so interesting? So the link is in the title of this live stream. You can find it on my website as well. This Isis activation, or it's the initiation through the Isis pathway. That's really what it's called. And what it actually is stepping out of the societal conditioning to actually allowing your heart to have what it really damn well wants. And I guarantee you're going to have much more fun along the way in following what your heart wants and giving yourself permission to that, and burning everyone else who's stuck in your head telling you can't do it, or you're so ego driven, or maybe it's your own sabotage, or maybe you're like hiding away and not showing up and doing what you really want to do and doing the thing that you know is actually going to get you there, not the X, Y, and Z, because that's actually the distraction. Yeah. That meditation is so powerful. The thing that came through when I was just about to press live and I was like typing it on the live stream title, I was like, wow, we've just gone April. And it like sent me back a few years to when I started the full moon ceremony And I started the full moon ceremony in April 2017, and I've been doing it every month since. I was just like, wow, that's a lot of full moons. And what's even more interesting, is that back in, it would have been like 2000 and, I reckon it would have been about 2011 even, actually. And I remember, this is so random, but it's not. It's obviously a reason I would share this. So it's coming to mind. So I was coming home from my level 1 yoga teacher training. It was a Saturday. I had to drive home from Brisbane. It's like an hour's drive home. And I was like in this like fight with my partner at the time. And, you know, and obviously they're like, we're texting or whatever. And then I'm driving back from Brisbane. And I was just feeling so angry. And I was like, had all this stuff to do with my purpose work. And I was learning all these things. And like, I was at my boiling point. And I remember driving home, and if anyone's driven from Brisbane to the Sunshine Coast, you'll know there's all the pine forest plantations. And anyway, I pulled off one of them and went down like the track, and it was just on dusk. Yeah, just on dusk, not dawn, it was dusk. And so it was dusk. It wasn't like the sun was going down, it was dusk. And the beautiful evening stars and that beautiful energy, you know, like when the sun goes down and it's like it's still light but the sun's gone, and then it turns to like the purples and the pinks, and then it sort of goes black or whatever, like, or pinks and then purples, I should say, probably. And it's just got that feeling, and it was that feeling, and it was so strong. And I remember being so angry and frustrated, and I don't know, there must have been other stuff going on. Like I was full, right? And when we're learning something new as well, like the whole brain neural pathways, like our whole energy and vibration is shifting. Like I was at a yoga teacher training, like, so it's like everything was vibrational shifting in me. Yoga is very deep internal work as well, because it's the physical internal work that we're doing, right? And I remember just like driving down, turning my car off, like, you know, you can hear all the cars on the highway, but there's like, you know, it's dusk, I'm in the middle of pine forest, maybe not the middle, but you know what I mean. And I remember getting out of my car, and I was like screaming at the top of my lungs. And it was so, and this is where I got the term, the piercing the veils. If you've heard me talk on some of my live streams in the past, perhaps you would have heard me talk about piercing the veils grief. Now, that day was piercing the veils screaming, just piercing the veils because I was angry, but it was piercing the veils asking for help. I was like piercing the veils, like I was screaming. You know, have you ever screamed so loud that you can hear like eardrums rattling or whatever? I don't know, some women might know what I'm talking about, right? And you scream so loud, and it's just like, it's rattling, like so, and you can hear yourself screaming, it's rattling. I don't know how to describe it any other way than that, right? I was like screaming. I'm like, if you want me to do this work, I need help. And I'm like screaming at the top of my lungs, right? This is like 2011. This is kind of funny that this story's coming up because this is so important. And I was screaming so loud. And then like, you know, and then I stopped, and like the moon was there. I think it might have been a new moon or something. Oh, it's new moon now. It's a new moon partial eclipse now. Well, technically yesterday morning, 24 hours ago, if you may. Yeah, just over 24 hours, maybe nearly 48 hours. Okay, 72 hours. Oh, no, not 72. Okay, a day and a half, whatever. It's just been. We're in the peak of it now, right? Anyway, so in the pine forest, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and that was the piercing the veils, because then I just stopped, and it was like I had to get all that out. But then I was like screaming for help. I'm like, if you want me to do this purpose work, if you want me to do this, like I need help. I cannot do all of this on my own. Like it was whatever it was, and then I just felt like all the realms like walk through the forest. Like it was literally like a merging of realities. And this is where I always talk about piercing the veils grief, because you have to remember, and I know you guys know this, that reality is not what it seems. Like duh, of course, right? But this ain't hard. This isn't hard. Like it's not solid like we're taught, right? We all know that this is made up of vibrating atoms at different densities. Like that's the reality about it, right? And when we can remember that, we get to play with reality, and we play with, you know, the geometric structure of the way reality is made up. And for some people like you and me, and if you're an ancient blooded healer, this is normal for us. this is normal for us. Some people need to go to ayahuasca ceremonies and sit around the fire and do their thing, and then reality opens up to them. But for some people like you and me, the ancient blooded healers, this is normal everyday reality. Now, of course, on eclipses and certain planetary lineups and different times of the year, these like merging of realities and the veil becomes very thin. You know, like at certain times of the year and at certain planetary, like, you know, it's not like a set thing, even though like solstice or, you know, those sorts of things, equinox, etc., we can sort of feel that energy, but definitely around the eclipses, which is just in the past week. Well, like I said, it was yesterday morning, Australian time. And this last week has also been for a lot of people, like it feels like a floaty feeling, and you know, you can feel a lot of love, or you can feel like just weird, or like things are moving but you're not moving, but you're like, well, hang on a sec, am I going crazy? Well, yeah, what you're actually feeling is the merging of realities. Yeah, it's a definite like shift. And if I can describe it, it's what I described in Transcendence group this week. It's almost like if our solar system is traveling through the earth or whatever, I mean through the ethers up there, or we're in it. If it's traveling through space, whatever, so to speak, and it's like, I don't know if it's like hitting another planet or hitting another solar system or something, and that sort of like that merging is like an interdimensional reality. Now what happens in that space, is it just bumping off and going off again, or is it completely merging, and that's when we're shifting to another level of consciousness and vibration? Like, who really knows, right? But you can feel that definite difference in energy, and the piercing the veils is even more distinct around these times, right? So anyway, back into the forest, and I'm like screaming at the top of my lungs, felt like all the beings come out of the forest, and not just the forest beings, but like from other realms. Like it was literally like if a bubble was closing in on me from all, like, you know, directions, I just felt all of the beings, and I was like, okay, well, I guess that worked. I guess that asking for help worked. How did I end up here? I'm just gonna check these comments so I don't lose them, and then I'm gonna come back to this point in the story and share, because for some reason I needed to share that. Oh yeah, because of the Isis activation. The initiation through the Isis pathway is about you following your heart no matter how hard it is, no matter, like, do you know what I mean? Like you can't not live this life. This is your purpose. Like you can't hold a normal job down. You just can't, and you will find a way, and you will make a way, and you will make this happen, because that is the only option. Yeah, that's the only option. Yeah. Okay, so let me just check that. So because Janina said that meditation is so powerful, and that's got me onto that story, but I'll just check these comments, because about the Isis, I need to speak to that. Hang on a second. Okay. Starseed Watson, I've been buying a few things for my own place to manifest it, but I don't have any thought into it, if that makes sense. So you've been buying a few things for your own place to manifest it, but I don't have any thought into it. Well, I want to say challenge you in a way to put thought into it, put conscious connection into it, put conscious like alignment, like make every day your choice to choose into that reality that's now. Like that's your only thoughts, if you may. It's like play with it and see how you can play with reality in that way, right? Okay. Oh, Lena says the thunder over here right now sounds like a bomb. Hey, they were like saying on the news over here a couple of months ago, like, oh, rain bombs coming. Like, there's a rain bomb. I see, right? Interesting. Shaz says we are our own worst enemy. Yes, we can be, and we can be our own best friend too. The choice is ours. We always have a choice in it, yeah? Charlie says, is that because it's not meant to be and the universe is redirecting? It can be. It can be a redirection for sure, but it is also like, check in though, is that what you really want? And you might think, yeah, that's what I really want, but at the end of the day, it's not what you really want. And I'll share about that, what I mean when I share, like when I finish my story around moving, not moving. This is part 2. So I'll tap into that. Like when you say, is that because it's not meant to be and the universe is redirecting? It's like, well, yes and no, because I'll just share it now, this little mouthful that wants to come out, because I ultimately want so funny, I shared this in a group this morning. I was like, I want a multi-million-dollar beach house, not because it's multi-million-dollars, it's just that that's how much they cost, right? But I've always, that's my dream, to live on the beach, like right on the beach, like not a street back, not a suburb back, like right on the beach, like multi-million-dollar beach house, like wake up and the blinds automatically come up and I see the beach and the sun rising and I'm checking if I'm getting up for a surf this morning or not. Like literally, right? And all the while by being here out 45 minutes inland in the country, in the hinterland, and this moving, not moving, like every time I get this wave to like move, I'm like, okay, we're gonna move, like I want to be near the beach. I'm like, okay, we'll do something about it, Hannah. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look at rentals. Okay, apply for rentals, go and look at rentals. And then I'm just like, oh my God, I'm like, is this a distraction, right? And the last sort of times I've applied, like I keep getting knocked back and I'm like, okay, I'm meant to be here, meant to stay here, whatever. So I keep doing my work. And then it comes around again, like this wave comes around again. And I'm like, okay, am I meant to move? Okay, like, okay, let's look for a house. Okay, do something about it, right? Take action. And I have been. And then it's kind of like, and every time I've done that, what I've noticed is a couple of things, right? And I know I'm all over the place, but I know that you guys will follow me who get it. And that's what's most important. Because all of these pieces interconnect with this point I'm sharing in the whole story for the whole reason I came on live stream, right? So every time I like go to look at a rental and apply and stuff and get knocked back, well, these days I've got to a point where I go and look at it and then I'm like, I'm not even going to apply, because then I go and like buy more furniture for the house, or I set this house up more. Now let's remember that I've been, this point of my live stream, like how did I end up here? Let's remember that I'm a single mom. I have been since my daughter was 3 months old, come out of DV, all sorts of things, got through it, blah, blah, blah. When she was 7, I put my business online and I put everything I have into my business. We haven't had a couch for 5 or 7 years or something. This is my live stream couch. Still don't have a couch yet. It's coming because I want a particular couch. But the point is that about 18 months ago, wow, nearly 2 years ago now, I did a live stream. I don't know, it was a little while ago, in this house. And I did a live stream and it's called, But Who Am I Without My Trauma? So funny if you haven't watched it and that title resonates with you, just type in trauma below and I will, well, on your phone or whatever, wherever you're watching this, and I'll send you the link for the replay of But Who Am I Without My Trauma? And that was like the biggest freaking realization moving out here. When we landed here, for the first time in my life, I realized that I don't need to run anymore. So I left home when I was 18 to get away from, like I moved to the other side of the country. I got in the car and I drove to the other side of the country. I was like, I'm fucking out of here. For lots of reasons. Living at home at that time was very difficult, and so I left. Didn't really know, I just wanted to drive around Australia, and I got halfway and I've been here ever since. And and then I've moved and blah 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 blah. That was when I was 18. I'm nearly 38. I'm turning 38. I'm 37. Let's just call it what it is. I'm 37 right now. Okay. I'm just really owning that I'm 37. And landing in this house, I realized that it started because a lot of the content that I've created for my business up until this date has been like, how to get out of a DV situation, do I stay or do I go, leaving a toxic relationship, narcissism, all the things, right? And there's a lot of like spiritual stuff on there as well. If you go to my self-help section on my website, realityawareness.com, and if you scroll down, you'll see self-help. And if you go in there, there's so many like reference videos and blogs and things that can help you. Like there is so much stuff. Like if you ever need help or support, go to my website, realityawareness.com, go to self-help, just scroll through and just click on something that jumps out at you. I've designed it like that so I can support you in the best way, because there's so many things that I've talked about over the years and it's just pure gold in there, okay? So when I arrived here, going back to the story, got like 3 stories going at once, are you with me? And I got to this point where I'm like, but who am I without my trauma? Because I got to a point where I realized in my business, I'm like, I don't want to fucking talk about this shit anymore. I don't want to talk about the domestic violence. I don't want to talk about the narcissism. I don't want to talk about all that stuff. Like I'm done. And then I realized I'm like, So if I'm not talking about that stuff, then what the fuck do I talk about? And then I realize I'm like, so who am I without my trauma? It's interesting what we're constantly telling ourselves. Someone had said on here before, Shaz said we are our own worst enemy. And I'm like, yeah, and the words we think and speak and repeat and over, and words that we write and talk and voice and all the things over and over creates our reality over and over and over and over and over. And I reached a point, and I just want to point out, right, because, sorry, I'm getting hot. Now I'm like talking to you guys, so I'm just going to take this off. I reached a point, hang on. I reached a point where I didn't want to talk about it anymore. And I was pretty lost for quite some time. And the thing is, right, that when I used to talk about it, I used to get called a victim, get over it, stop talking about it, you're a victim, you're just in your victim consciousness, and fuck man, I hate that shit. Nobody's a victim, they just haven't healed from their stuff. That's all. Because nobody has validated their feelings and nobody has been there for them like they have needed it. That's all. They're not a fucking victim. Well, they are actually, but the way that you're demeaning them by talking that is like that's not healing. And at the same time, every time someone would say that to me, it would really trigger me and upset me. And because I knew I just hadn't healed from it, and so it would piss me off because I knew I hadn't healed from it. That's what's really going on there. Right? And every time someone would say, just choose a different reality, just choose a different feeling. And I'm like, you don't get it. You have no fucking idea what I've been through. Don't ever say that to me again. Like, oh, you know, and I'm talking to the person on the video who's just said that on their live stream or something. It's kind of funny. I'm like, they have no fucking idea what I've been through. I look back on it now and I'm just like, really? But I really needed those triggers because I also knew that I still have more healing to do. And then it got to a point, and it's a tolerance level, right? What we tolerate. And I was like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And I was really lost. And then it, like I said, it hit me. I was like, but who am I without my trauma? Because since I was 18, I left home and I've been running away from trauma and running away from, stuff. And I've been doing this spiritual work since I was 21. And it's not that I haven't been doing the work, because I've done a lot of fucking work. And I'm a living, breathing example that no matter how advanced you are, no matter how healed you are, you've always got more stuff. There is stuff at every level. If someone says to you, I'm healed, I don't need to do any more work, you want to walk the right fuck away from them, because that's the biggest red flag ever. Ever. Okay, let me check these comments because there's heaps, right? I want to speak to them. Okay. Oh, Aurora, Hannah's Trust Intuition course literally saved my life. Well, I did because I chose to do it. There we go, yeah. But when I found her over 3 years ago, maybe 4, I don't pop in here as much as I used to because I'm able to support myself in ways that I need. Oh, see, that's the point. I'm an intuitive healer. You come to me for healing and I teach you things and I set you on your way. I'm not the healer that you come to and you're like, I need a healing. Let me come back. Let me get another healing. Let me come back. Like, no, I teach you how to do it and I send you on your way. Like, that's the point. That's the purpose, right? Intuitive healer and life purpose mentor, because when you heal and you trust your intuition, it sets you on your purpose and you don't fucking need me anymore. That's the point. Imagine if everyone did that in the world. That's my mission, awakening the consciousness of humanity. Oh, sorry, it's actually Reality Awareness's mission, but I'm the guardian of it. So, you know, you get the vibe, right? So, as Aurora says, but anyway, point is, Hannah is not ego-driven. Oh, thank you. She has put the time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears. Everything Hannah stands for and shares is from her heart. I have watched her be vulnerable with her shadow. I know your heart and I know you laugh, Hannah, about it, but I know it builds up as splinters in our field and I want to dissipate it with my words. I love you, Hannah. Oh my God, you're going to make me cry. Going to make me fucking cry. That's hilarious in a way that I'm just like, yeah. And it's funny because the reels that I've been creating lately, so this is the thing, right? People have come into my field and they don't know me, and like, that's fine. That's why I'm going to start live streaming more, because I realize I'm like, there's a lot of people that don't know me yet, right? Because I haven't been live streaming as much as I used to, right? Many years ago. That's why I've got a website full of stuff, right? So little side note, you want to start doing your purpose, I'm like, get started on live stream and don't stop, like do it daily, like for years, and then tell me it's not working, right? So it's interesting because the reels I've been creating are like, you might have seen one actually. Let's pick one. Oh, if you've been ghosted, try this instead. And I explain something in 15 seconds. And there's like all these people, it's so funny because I didn't even know, like I put it on Facebook, I put it on all platforms, and I put it on Facebook, but I didn't know where reels are on Facebook. Like I know how to upload it, but I don't know where it goes. I don't know how to find it. And then one day I had like all these like private messages in my request folder, like, you know, in the like, I don't know, request folder. And I went in there and they're like similar messages from all these people like going, oh, just ignore the negative comments from them. Like keep doing the good work. Like I believe in you and shit. And I'm like, oh, what's happened? I don't even know. And then I like checked this reel and it's had like, it's probably had more now. This was about 2 weeks ago. It's had like 16,000 views. And I was like, oh. And I'm like scrolling through the comments. I'm like, this is what they're talking about. Because there's people like, what's that thing on your forehead? Oh, did you get a stamp on your head? Did you pass out drunk? And I'm like, oh, here we go. But then there was other things like, this is such bad advice. You shouldn't be saying if you're ghosted, like, you know, just walk away from them. And I'm like, here we go. I was like, would you like me to send you my 2-hour live stream that I have talking about narcissism? Would you like me to send me my whole self-help page? It's got about 50 videos talking about narcissism. I got to a point in my business when I realized, I was like, who am I without my trauma? I don't want to talk about this shit anymore. There is hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of videos there and blogs, so many blogs, probably like 50 books sitting on my website of all the reasons about understanding narcissism and the part that you have to play in the relationship of a narcissistic like environment, yeah? All the way back to your childhood and beyond. Back into past lives even, right? But you're judging me from a 15-second reel. I'm like, this is so funny. In myself, I was just like, really, guys? Like, okay. And the whole thing for me is that when I got to a point, I'm like, who am I without my trauma? And I don't want to talk about this shit anymore. And then it got to a point where, you know, it's probably been about a good year to 18 months of me just going, so how do I do my business? And what do I talk about if it's not that and blah, blah. Like I've been going through a huge recalibration and I feel like I've just turned a corner and I'm like, I think I get it now. Number one, I'm going to start writing my books, but that's a whole other subject. So anyway, back on point. So when I'm like looking through these comments of like the 15-second reels and stuff, it's so hilarious to me because I'm just like, you know, like number one, I understand how easy it is to judge people from a little snippet or something on, you know, thing. But when they keep going on and they're replying to other people's comments, I'm like, you've really got it in for me. And then I go through my notifications and they've gone to other videos and they're like, you need to stop talking, giving this bad advice. And I'm just like, wow. So number one, when you start to step up to your life purpose and you have a voice, you're going to get lashback. The thing is, are you going to stop, right? And the first thing I do when I see someone do that stuff, I click on their profile and I'm like, who is this person? And I'm like, oh yeah, just a nobody. Okay, keep doing my work. And it's not that they're a nobody, but when we start to step into our purpose work and we're really coming out into the world and sharing our message, because your message is your purpose and your message is the point of you living, are you going to let that person who's probably in a domestic violence relationship, who hasn't healed from it, who is not dealing with it because they're being a keyboard warrior, and when you try and talk to them about it, they just block and delete you. And it's like, yep, that's what I thought so. You know, and so it's like really understanding and coming from that perspective of understanding humans, understanding keyboard warriors, understanding the nature of your message and how it triggers people and how it inspires people, and it does all of those in one hit, yeah? And really understanding that your message is important. Your journey is important. Everything that you've been through is important. Everything that you've lived through is important, and it's here for a reason. Yeah? So, Aurora, I really appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I love that so much. You know, and the thing is that, you know, the last little piece on that before I move on is I started doing 15-second reels on little snippets. Because those people who watch 15-second reels, are they really going to sit there and watch a 2-hour live stream and understand everything I'm talking about? No, but I can catch their attention on a 15-second reel, and then they can move to the next one and the next one and next one and understand, I start to understand what she's talking about now. Right. But would they sit there and listen to a 2-hour live stream on it? Fuck no, I'd be surprised, right? Maybe if they start to get to know me and they're like, oh, what is she actually saying? By the way, a lot of my live streams are long. So you can also listen multitasking, you know, like plug it into your car and while you're driving, or Bluetooth it, or, you know, listen on your earphones while you're doing the dishes, while you're hanging the washing out, while you're going for a walk, like, you know, absorb it. There's plenty of time. There's always enough time for everything you need to do. Oh, thanks, guys. Charlie says you're so not ego driven, but you don't need to tell you that. Yeah, I just find it funny. I just like calling it out because I'm like, it's kind of hilarious. What? Because I want super yachts and my vision has always been that I'm a billionaire. I'm like, wanna watch me? That's why I say that. Natalie says society. I'm like, yep, that's right, because that's what society says. Aurora says, of course you know this, but I felt the need to share. Yeah, I really appreciate you, Aurora. Thank you so much. Natalie says, yes, I was always the black sheep and thought it was a bad thing. Now I see that I'm the free one. And I'm happy to not fit in. Yes, you weren't born to fit in. Yes, from the depth of your stomach. Yeah, the piercing the veils grief and the piercing the veils screams. Yeah, it's a deep one. Should have gone for a forest walk. Yeah, I was on the drive home and picking up my then at the time toddler daughter. So yeah, that wasn't an option at that moment. Erin says, yes, I've been my own worst enemy and finally transitioning into my own best friend. Yes, that's the point of the healing, right? And that's the thing. I have some clients come into my workspace, into my space, and they work with me. And they like do all this healing work and they're like, yeah, I'm a healer and I'm going to do all this healing and do this in the business. And then they kind of sort of hit this wall. Not everybody, but some people. And they're like, I don't fucking want to do this healing work anymore. I'm done. And they get the intuitive message to do that and they fucking trust it and they put it down. And that's huge. You know how I shared the other week? I think last week I shared that live stream on like sometimes your purpose is not your purpose. If you haven't watched that, scroll down on my page or go to my video section on my Facebook and you'll see it. My Facebook page, Reality Awareness, and you'll see it. It's just last week or something. I got a pink jumper on. And sometimes your purpose is not your purpose. And sometimes we do all this healing work and then we realize and remember, like we get to a point sometimes we're like, oh, and it's either we're recalibrating and moving to a higher level and expanding with it, or we're literally being shown another path. And do you trust yourself enough to fully do that? And it's the same when people come in my Trust Intuition course. They're like, yeah, I'm going to be a healer. And sometimes they go through it and they're like, actually, I'm being called to do this completely other thing. And I'm like, sweet. And the thing that you have to remember is sometimes it's similar about sometimes your purpose is not your purpose. Sometimes we go through and we need to heal something, or we even need to do a certain business, or we even need to go through a certain like experience. And we're like, yeah, this is what I'm meant to do. And we get to a point where we're like, I don't want to do this anymore. But we needed to do that and get to that point so that not only we can realize it, but also we needed to heal or gain those skills or whatever we did at that point. So then we can move on to the next thing. And we wouldn't have found our purpose over here if we didn't do this, because this was the doorway to that. That's why trust your intuition. Shaz says your cat is back. She's beautiful. Yes, I have 9 of them. I'm literally like the crazy psychic cat lady. That wasn't the plan. That just happened. So thoughtful, giving us the tools to heal. Honestly, that's like part of Reality Awareness's vision, is to have like a place to come and heal. And it just so happens I'm building online first. Physical, in-person places around the world, next stage. So Sophia says, reality is unfortunately, no one lets you speak about it. At least that's what happened to me. Yeah, I want to say the wrong people won't let you speak about it. You know that saying, like, what is it? You can't say the right thing to the wrong person and you can't say the right, you know what I'm talking about, that saying, right? And it really is for that. And the reason that I came online, well, there's many reasons that I came online to build my business, is number one, the biggest thing was I was like, I swear there is more people like me in the world. There is more people like me in the world. I guarantee it. It's just that I reached this, like one of those points that I just spoke about, right? And I was redirected. I reached a point going to like surfing moms, yoga classes, all sorts of things, like all the in-person stuff that I could, because that's just who I am. I do it all, right? And I reached a point where it was like clicky group after clicky group after clicky group, and I was like, no one understands me, and I'm like, what the fuck is with this clickiness shit around all these different groups? I'm like, I'm out. And then I just fully dove into building my business online because I was like, I swear there is more people like me out there. And lo and behold, here you are, and I fucking love you. My reality awareness support group on Facebook is free. Type in support group if you're not in there. So there's two places for, you know, all you guys here. Is my public page, which you're watching this live stream on now. And then there's also, well, you might be watching on my YouTube replay or whatever, but this is where I go live on my page. And then there's my free private group. It's private, it's a little safe space. So if you need help, support, you've got questions about spirituality or domestic violence or whatever the fuck you're going through, like, it's a support group. Because the thing about trusting your intuition is that usually there's stuff in the way that we need to clear out, and we fully trust ourselves, and then we're going like, you know, and we might even trust ourselves fully, and we hit these sort of points and we're like, why don't I trust myself anymore? Why am I that person that I used to be and so carefree and did it all and all the things? Like, whatever happened to me, right? So there's all these different points along the way too. So Reality Awareness support group, it's free. If you're not in there, just comment support group below, get daily tips. I've started being more like consistent. There's daily tips to increase your intuition and all sorts of things in there. Lots of content in there as well. You think there's a lot of content on my website. There's also a lot of content in the guides section. I think it's called guides. I think it's featured. It was either featured or guides. You know, at the top of the group, you can like, there's all the little tabs or whatever in the Facebook group. Facebook keeps changing things. It used to be called guides, but now it's featured or whatever. Anyway, there's lots of things to go through in there. I seriously need to get out of my head. Yes, best thing to do about that is to move your body. Yeah. Oh, just had a mastectomy, need to heal my mind. Ah, that's so huge. That's really, really big, right? And I hope that you're working with someone through that as well. Like, you know, do you have a support person? Do you have a healer? Do you have a mentor? Like, do you have somebody? Because those things are huge. Like, that's massive. Yes. Please teach me. Can't get out of this depression. Yeah, it's so huge. So depression comes from many things, right? So send me a message if you want to work one-on-one with me. I have lots of one-on-one programs that I work with my clients. Life Purpose Accelerator is actually opening tomorrow as well. So send me a message and I can send you an early link for that. We can chat about it if you want to work one-on-one. So, you know, like depression is like pressing down. So like when I teach the chakras and spirituality coming down. So we work from the crown, third eye, ears, include the ears. It's so important to open up to spirit, to hear your intuitive guidance, let alone open in any shape or form. So ears, chakras, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral base. So I work down the old spirituality, or the, I don't know, it's not old, I don't know what the right words are. Just like there's a spirituality on the planet that comes up from the bottom. There's no wrong or right, but I'm here to teach the down. And we come down into our body, as a lot of people living up in their head. And so we come down into our body. Now, our soul and spirit comes down. When we're a baby and we're born, we crown. Yeah, we come through. It's kind of changing a lot these days, which makes me sad because babies are being ripped out of the womb via cesarean, and a lot of them are unnecessary because we have a lot of male doctors giving orders when it's a woman's job. And when I say woman's job, I mean like the person giving birth is the woman's job. Don't even get me started on that. Don't get me started on that. Anyway, there's a reason that they're ripping them out of their wombs too, so that we don't crown. It's so deep. Just wanted to say that. Not going to go into it anymore, but it's really, really deep and it's really big. And it's, by the way, really important to heal your birth story and the way you were born into this world if you really want to move forward. So anyway, a little side note. Lots of little tidbits in this live stream. I hope you're writing them all down. Depression is like the soul is coming into the body and the soul comes down, right? We birth, the soul comes through, right? We're birthing through, so the soul's coming down into reality. Physical reality, right, is where the soul is housed in our body, and the soul is birthing the first point in, yeah? And so depression and this, the crown chakra is our connection to source, yeah? It's like, it's a connection here. And when we're cut off from source and our crown is closed and it presses down, like a suppression, it's pressing down, right? So depression is a suppression of your soul wanting to live, yeah, and do all the things. So like I said, depression can come from the suppression of your heart, which is what we've been talking about with the Isis activation. So the Isis manifestation, the initiation through the Isis pathway, I should say, is in the title of this live stream. You can find it on my website, you can find it on my Facebook page. It's a 33-minute journey. It is a journey. It's not just a 5-minute meditation. It's a journey. It's a 33-minute long, which is kind of interesting, all the threes. So the depression can be like pushing down, but it can also be the recalibration of a point in your life where you're changing through something, you're moving through something, you're going through a life change. You can be depressed because it's the same thing I was talking about before. You've hit that point and you're going this direction now, not that way, and the whole structure of your life changes and moves. And if you don't support it or understand those things, yeah, depression will be rife. Yeah. Charlie says, I've been talking about my trauma for so many years. It's like robot mode with no feelings. My words just store. I realize that's the point. I think I've done my healing. My wounds are still there, but I couldn't keep dragging it around with me. People just judge me and victimize me also. Yeah, exactly, right? And I think we get to that point where we're like, what do I talk about? Because we're so, and to be honest, there is a part of healing that is talking about it. And then there is the feeling of it, which shifts it. So yeah, definitely work with someone if you're not. Yeah. It's been years and I'm still trying to heal from my DV. Yeah, I think it's a bit like grief in a way of when somebody dies and we're grieving them. I don't think that grief ever goes away. Yeah, it might ease off at times, but yeah. The crazy dog lady. I love it. Sophia says, because I never had experienced half the shit I'd been through, so they couldn't understand my trauma. Exactly. Yes. Leah says, how do you help a friend who knows they need help but won't help themselves and then turns the table on you and calls you an asshole? Okay, so this is when boundaries come in. Some of the biggest healings that I've had has been from people setting boundaries with me. And whether we're setting the boundaries or they're getting set on us, biggest healing ever. And if we look at it like a redirect, yeah, so I call it tough love. Yeah, tough love is what it's called. So going back to the piercing the veil's grief, how did I end up here? And in the forest, piercing the veil's in the middle of the forest, the Isis activation and the Isis. So around that time, I even wrote a post about it and I've got it somewhere. I should try and find it. I saved it because it came up in one of my memories a couple of years ago and I was like, fuck, that was a powerful moment. And I feel like piercing the veils through the screaming and calling out for help and feeling everyone come has set me on my path today. And all those beings that came from all the realms are still guiding me today. Something shifted in me that day, that night, that evening. Something changed and it set me on the path that I'm on today. Not that I wasn't already on the path, but it changed me. And I'm doing the full moon ceremonies, the level of connection that I have. And like I said, there's people like us that are ancient blooded healers, and that piercing the veils, the merging of realities, and we feel those subtle shifts in reality. It's like the interdimensional travel, but we're here, and we frequently talk about this, and the training of it is really in the full moon ceremonies each month that I hold, because every time you attend one, it's not only an activation, a healing, and it shifts stuff out of you, it's also training you, because the work that we're doing in that space is like a next level of all the interdimensional work in there. So that moment in time changed me, and I'm going to bring us all the way back to right now. The last 2 weeks, I've been in the biggest recalibration. It's almost like from the who am I without my trauma, and what the fuck do I talk about in my business if I'm not talking about that, right? Anymore. That whole 18 months to where I am now is a big point of, I get to a point now and I question, how did I end up here? but it's not out of a bad feeling anymore. And it's got to this point because the last 2 weeks have been, it feels like it's been a integration of the last 18 months. So some of you might know my best friend Jade, and she was working for me in April last year. I think it was April last year. And she worked with me for a while, and then it didn't feel right anymore. And so I let her go from, you know, working in the business. And I was like trying to figure out like, how do I do this? I'm like, you need a team, you need help, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, but how do I do this? And like, you know, it's been like back and forth for like 18 months. So I hired more staff about, I don't know, a month ago, within the last month, right? And it was good. I was like, sweet, cool. And then something didn't feel right. And I've learned to pick it up very fast. And the things that I've learned in business over the past 5 years online have been like, the faster I pick something up, well, this is the same in anything, right? The faster I pick something up, the faster I can shift it. But the biggest thing is like, as a people pleaser, recovering people pleaser, as a empath, as a healer, as someone who feels everything all the time and some, like, how the fuck do I have people in my business? How do I have a team? How do I do any of this, right? And so then it's kind of like, I had to let this person go just in this last month. I was like, this is not working. And in myself, I'm like, Hannah, you've learned this lesson before. Like, you have to let them go. Like, do the thing. And like my mentor's voice, and like from, it was about 2 years ago, when she said to me, she said, it's normal to let people go in a business. And if you're going to run a big company, you need to get savvy. Well, she didn't use that word, but you need to get savvy with being able to let staff go. If they're not aligned, they're not aligned. And I was like, and it was always in my head. And I was like, okay, you can do this. You can do this. And I literally like let her go on a Friday. And it was so synchronistic, because before then I'd organized to have a walk with Jade. We go for a walk on the Noosa headland. It's so beautiful, and might have seen it on my story the other week. And, you know, we're talking about all the things. And it's so interesting because last year at this time, we went for the same walk on the same headland. And that's when she started working for me, when we were talking about it. And then this time, like, I let this girl go on the Friday, and that was with a lot of faith in and surrender. If there's a word that I have for this year, it's surrender. And so I let her go, and I thought, you know, like, it was a clear cognizant thought. I was like, oh, I'm catching up with Jade. That's interesting. Same walk. I was like, but that's not what I'm catching up with her for. It's not to work with me. We're just catching up. Anyway, so get to the walk with Jade, walking on the beautiful headland. And even when I was driving there, because we got there early, because it's Noosa National Park, and it gets busy as fuck, especially on a long weekend. So I'm like, get there early so we, number one, get a car park, and it's not as busy because, you know, I don't like being in crowded places just when I'm trying to have a walk. Anyway, the point is, driving there, it's dawn, and the stars are there. The stars, Isis, the eclipses. So we just had the partial eclipse. The total eclipse is coming up in 2 weeks on the full moon, which you're gonna wanna be in the full moon ceremony for that. So the full moon ceremony, you can find on my website. You'll see me post about it as well. We do the ceremony in the group. It's a live stream like this, but I'm doing a ceremony for you guys. Channeling whatever comes through. Anyway, I'm driving and I see the planets. So I didn't even know that the planets were aligned. And then like, I was like, oh, check out all the stars like in the line while I'm driving, in the moon, and the stars are there. And then Jade's like, oh yeah, there's some planetary lineup. And I'm like, oh, of course there is. That's why we're catching up. So we went for this big long walk. And then we sat down on the rocks near the water for quite some time, and it was really quite windy. So it was really cleansing the aura. Like if you're in the wind and it's really windy, like you can feel it go through your aura, and you can use it like a meditation of like clearing negative energy out of your field. And it's like the wind blows all the shit out of your aura, right? And it blows, you know, it's really cleansing. You know, when you've been out, you know, you're in the wind for ages and you come out and you're like, whew, you know. So it's like, you know, coming into this place of like sitting there, cleansing, talking, and then we started talking about her working for me. And I was hesitant because number one, like she worked last year. I didn't want to go through that again. It was so hard and heartbreaking, like your best friend and like all, like it was all fine, but it was like, it's not easy, right? When you're running your business and it's like, you need to put yourself first or business first, like there's all these factors, yeah? Don't want to hurt people's feelings, blah, blah, blah. Like talk about an empath queen, like learning to run an empire. Like it's been a learning, let's say. It's been a learning, but hey, I'm the guardian of it and I've been granted this and I'm doing the work. Doing all the work, learning all the things because, you know, if you're going to do something, do it properly, I say. So talking, and we started talking about her working for me and I told her, I was like, well, it just so happens I let the girl go on Friday. And it was so interesting because like that wasn't planned. And I was nervous and hesitant. I didn't really say, do you want to work for me again? Because I kind of felt bad from last year or whatever. Anyway, as we're talking about it, it's so windy. And then this hawk, eagle, I thought it was a hawk, maybe it was a seagull, maybe it was an osprey, I don't know. And it just like came across, and because it was so windy, it was just sort of hovering there, right? Because the wind's holding it. And it just hovered over me. And then it just hovered over Jade. And then it flew away. Well, it just hovered back over there. And we're like, I think that's the sign. And it wasn't there any other time we were talking about anything, right? And I'm like, okay, there's a sign, right? Anyway, so fast forward to now and today and last week. So Jade was here today and then also last week, and I handed over so much work. And I, like last week when she was here on the Monday, and then the next day I started bleeding. Like it came early. I was just like, it was just like release. It was like, wow, I have been holding so much stuff and I didn't even realize. And it's not that I haven't been trying to get stuff. It's not that I haven't been doing the things. And if you're building a business, I want to say that it takes time. Don't give up. And even if like it doesn't work the first time, you keep going until it does. Through people, through figuring out systems, through like you have a message and it needs to come out. And there's the people who try and give up and say it didn't work. And then there's the people who just don't give up. And you just keep learning and growing and shifting and changing and like coming into it. And this time around, I've learned and understand how to even have a team now. Maybe I was micromanaging, but I also feel like, you know, in the past, last year and whatever, I just feel like it's not that I wasn't ready. I think the business wasn't ready in a sense of like, I built this business from the ground up. As Aurora said, blood, sweat and tears, like literally. Literally, she's been here from the start since 2016. She's seen the whole journey. And the point and the piece is that am I moving? Am I not moving? Am I moving and am I not moving? My whole life has been instability, trauma, domestic violence, abuse, whatever the fuck. Sure, I've had fun along the way. I've done things, I've whatever. But the reality is that I've not known what it's like to have a stable, grounding foundation. And there's been many reasons why I'm building my business. Number one, because the vision says so. Awakening the consciousness of humanity is no small feat, right? But I've got the whole plan. That's a gift that I'm grateful to be the guardian of. And for the first time in my life, I'm building stability. I don't have to move house. I don't have to run away from abuse. I don't have to be in the vigilance-like state. And the biggest piece is that you might hear people talk about masculine and feminine energy. And they say, and I know that I've been more in my masculine for quite some time. And I always thought, you know, from hearing other people talk that I let infiltrate my field, that was a bad thing. Now, it got to a point where it wasn't bad. It was just that I realized I had a shell around me. I call it a trauma shell. And that's like the masculine and the doing, because that's how I learned to survive. And the whole point of doing everything that I've done to build stability for my daughter, myself, my business, change the world, that requires stable foundations, which is the entire fucking point that I came online, because I've always had the vision to have the reality awareness havens around the world where people can come and heal, grow, shift, all the things, right? So much more than that, but there's like the in-person things. And I saw over the years that so many shops would come and go. Yeah, shops would come and go. And it's like, because they're like $3 or $4 grand a week to rent a like commercial building, right? Or a shop or something. I'm like, you need a high turnover for that. Selling like a $2 box of incense is not going to cover a $2.5 to $4 grand a week rent for a shop front. In myself, I'm like, that's not going to work for me. And so hence why I built online. Being able to raise my daughter, being able to have an aspect of freedom to my life, do what I want when I want, work when I want, work as much as or little as I want. And even though there's definitely still overheads because it's a freaking business, right? It's definitely not like a $4 grand a week on just a building, you know? And with the retreats, I'm like, well, there needs to be, like for me, I'm like the online side is because that can support the in-person, and especially the start. From the ground up, blood, sweat, and tears. Am I moving? Am I going? Am I moving? Am I going? Every time that comes around, I've started to learn, even though I'm still questioning, I'm like, okay, but I do want to move to the beach. And this is what I was talking about at the start. I'm like, sometimes your desires haven't manifested because it's not actually what you want. For example, what I mean by that is I'm like, it comes around. So I'm like, okay, I need to like take action. You want to move to the beach, Hannah? Fucking move, take action, move to the beach, stop complaining about it. So I do, and I go look at rentals. And like I said, I've stopped applying for them this second in time, but like I apply, you know, why I realized like when I was getting knocked back, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm meant to be here. And just recently what I've realized, I'm like, well, that place is not actually what I want. Okay, cool, it's near the beach. It's very fucking close to the beach, actually, one we looked at like, you know, the other week. And I'm like, but there's aspects of it that I'm like, yeah, I could live there, make do, just like we do in any house, right? But I'm like, it's not actually what I want. I want my beach house, but I want my beach house. I don't want to rent again. I don't want to have to go through that again. I don't want to have to do that again. And so it's not manifesting because I don't actually want that, but you know what I mean? But we could look at that as though like, oh, well, you've got a block to this, so you've got to, actually, it's just not what you want. And if I actually just go for what I really want and set my whole heart and energy and focus on that, it's going to come in a lot faster than if I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z, which is what we started talking about at the start of this live stream. So are you actually having and going after what you really want in the initiation through the Isis pathway, which is the meditation that came through and I released yesterday, it's on the title of this live stream, you can find it on my website, is literally about, do you have the courage to actually have what you want? Do you have the courage to actually go for what you want, not what you think you want, X, Y, and Z? No. Right? You have to learn, you have learned how to avoid error. Yeah, and I think that that's something that we learn along the way. So even when like Leah was asking before, like how do you help someone who's not listening or doesn't want your help, but you know they need the help, and then what did you say? But then they turn on you and call you narcissistic and call you all the things, and I'm like, that's where the boundaries come in. Because we learned that people like that won't learn from us, won't listen. It's a bit like the husband and the husband or the wife or both won't listen to each other, but they'll go and learn it from other people, and they're like, hey, that's what I just said. But you won't listen to me, but you'll listen to them. Same deal. And this way you learn to have boundaries and only keep certain people in your life, right? This is where your standards raise, that you won't actually have people like that anymore around you or connect with them. And maybe you need lots of space from them for a period of time because you actually don't want people like that around you because they're not listening to you and they're just going to complain and complain and complain. And the other part about that is that you used to be like that. And so you kind of feel bad, or, you know, you can help them because you move through it or whatever. And then it gets to a point where you realize that that person won't shift until they're ready, just like you did. And you're like, I've got work to do. And you feel the guilt and you walk away anyway and you do what you're here to do. So we don't get sucked into it, because we do. Yeah? Alina said, maybe that beach is not the right beach, not in this country. Exactly. We don't know why we're being blocked from certain things. And sometimes it's because we need to ground down and be more stable where we are. And sometimes it's that we need to pick up and just leave. Like, I'm saying this now, and in 2 weeks' time, I could be packing up my house and moving to a rental on the beach. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. But I've noticed the pattern that when I've got more stable in my business, in my life, like when I handed a whole pile of stuff over to Jade, I wanted to leave. And what I mean by that is, because I became more stable, is that comfortable to me? Is that comfortable to a person who's been on the run her whole fucking life, who hasn't had a stable partner, who hasn't had a stable relationship, who doesn't have family around, who doesn't know what fuck stability is? And people have said to me in the past, you're not stable. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, I'm like, is that number one helpful? Number two, you know, like, instability to people who are not living outside the box like you will always be unstable and crazy to them. But really, you've just got a really strong connection, a huge ass fucking vision that you won't stop until it comes into reality, and that's going to look really unstable to people. Now, was there truth in that? In a sense of like, well, maybe, like, you know, I've been a mother who's trying to do it all on her own for a very long time. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's truth in it, but at the same time, it's like I knew what I'm creating and still do. But because I'm actually now starting to create really stable foundations in my business and life, and I'm like 5 years online, it's like, you know, Reality Awareness has turned into a company like in 2019, and there's been a lot of great success with it. Still today, it's why I'm here, right? And it just keeps growing and expanding every year. It's like the revenue gets higher and higher and higher. I'm like, that's just normal. I'm like, isn't that how a business grows? That's just normal, right? But that doesn't come out of thin air. That's come from the blood, sweat, and tears, where I've turned up time and time again, and I invested myself, and I put myself around high-level mentors and in the inner circles, and put myself around it when I did not have the funds to invest except for the first payment. And I'm like, get me the fuck in there and I'll figure the rest out later. Because show me what you're doing so I can do it too, in my way, in my business, because my vision calls for that. Not everybody has that drive. Like I said, if you didn't watch that, sometimes your purpose is not your purpose. It's figuring out who you are in that. Yeah? And so it's really coming into that place that, you know, if you've come from an unstable background or domestic violence or trauma or abuse, you will understand where I'm coming from. Because sometimes stability is not safe because we've never fucking had it before. And then when we start to create it in our life, it's catching these points where we're like, actually, this is very stable. And I've created this. And those people who've said that I'm not stable, I'm like, actually, I've been doing this since 2005 while you changed jobs and jobs and jobs. I'm like, okay, yeah. Single mum too. When the teacher wrote my child is stable in a school report, I cried. Yes. There it is. Yeah. Stability is an honor. Yeah. And I think we do everything we do to create that for ourselves, our children, our life. There's a reason to our madness, no matter what it looks like to somebody else. Yeah. That's where trusting your intuition comes into it. Yeah. All right. I've got it all out. Is there anything else that I need to say? If you want to truly embed the path, not the XYZ, if you're stuck, if you're wanting to be able to move forward and take that leap before you know how, the ISIS initiation through the ISIS pathway will help you to reclaim those parts of yourself that you've lost through the trauma, the abuse, all of those pieces, and to be able to shut out the world and remember your heart and have the courage to follow that all the damn fucking way. until, and some. Yeah. Link is in the title of this live stream, wherever it is for you. And Life Purpose Accelerator opens tomorrow. Send me a message if you want to talk about the inner circle, to get in working with me one-on-one. There's 2 tier levels that you can enter Life Purpose Accelerator on, Ruby or Diamond. So send me a message if you'd like the link for that, or we can have a chat about it. And remember to trust your intuition, to keep it real, to block the world out and trust your crazy vision, because the things that you really want, if you just give yourself permission to go after them and get the support to make that happen, that's what you're born for. And anything other than that will be dying before your time. I love you. Keep it real, as always.